Let's get started on today's critique, some announcements, some basic stuff. So one big announcement is that I just finished doing the Patreon Critique Hour meet with my apprentices, and it was a wonderful, wonderful meet. We covered a lot of stuff. We covered animation, fluid motion, and gestures. It was really, really great, wonderful stuff. I have chosen a couple of things to look at today, but for those who want their work submitted and looked at in Critique Hour, please go to the Google Plus icon to join. Make sure you're reading the rules. God damn it, I forgot what it's called again. Let's go back. Pole vault. Oh God, I keep forgetting. The pole vault critique. The pole vault community challenge, community design challenge brief will be uploaded sometime by the end of the week. So this week. So that means you guys get most of August and some of September to finish it. So are you guys ready for this? I mean, are you guys ready for this challenge? Because it's really, really scary and really tough business. And I'll be doing a compilation video by the end of the year of our favorite challenge submissions, of our, you know, best critiques of the year kind of business. So this one is going to be on that. This one will be a contest. So the winner does get free sessions with me. Portfolio one-on-one reviews, 3 hours. The last winner was Tyler Finnegan. He's a wonderful fella, and he's still in our community. We've made great friends with him. He's a great guy. So I hope that, you know, this upcoming challenge, we meet more people join. I don't like when 2 people join. I work really, really hard to run this community and really, really hard to get these contests out and available for you guys. Some of the content, because he had a tablet, some of the stuff that he won some art supplies, a portrait studio copy, brush sets. So it's just a lot of resources that you get to explore your art with. And the portfolio reviews are my own way of making sure that I'm steering you in the right direction with your studies, if any steering is necessary, and just giving you my input. So I hope you guys are joining this contest that's upcoming. The Apple release for Portrait Studio is also nearing very, very soon. If it's done, which it almost is, there's going to be a small update. Not so small an update. There's going to be like 90 new assets on Portrait Studio. So that means more foliage, more models for you to combine together and make an entire scene. And you can save scenes. So you can be loading a scene, choosing your best camera angle. It's just going to be crazy stuff, and we're going to have a video up for that very soon. Because it's just only a 2-man group, mostly 1 man and a half group, man and a fairy group. The fairy is me, because that's all that the team that goes into it is a very, very tough and treacherous, I don't know, lengthy process. So it takes a little bit of time for Abu to load everything and make sure everything is running smoothly while keeping frame rate low or high, actually frame rate high, so that those who are using lower end computers can still run Portrait Studio after this update. It's a lot of stuff, but all this specific stuff, Abu has more knowledge on it than I do. I sound like an idiot talking about all the logistics. And if anyone's interested in joining Patreon as a watcher or more, you can do so now, because this is the fresh start of the new month. It is no longer the end of the old month, so you can get in early on the upcoming homework, which is going to be a lot of rendering discussion, rendering talk, photo referencing. The theme from this month's time-lapse video was rendering male faces and discussing how to balance the focal point of your reference and how to change the focal point and make your own focal point and know what just decisions to make and steer away from your reference while still using it as a supporting resource. So that upcoming challenge for this month is going to be based off of that. Male face studies, full render, pushing the render as far as possible. Yeah, so if anyone wants to get all you onions want to get in on that, join as an apprentice to make it for this month's Critique Hour. Our last challenge was animating, and we discussed gesture and stuff, so if anyone wants to catch up on that, you can still do that stuff. Old homework all the way from January, you can still track back and watch all the Critique Hours, the apprentice only ones, from all the way back in January as an apprentice through the Discord community. So there is access to Discord, of course, and a critique room and all of that business for those who are interested. So let's get started on today's critique. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit slow. I'm feeling under the weather as usual. But yeah, I'm so sorry. So this is a 14-day challenger, and this is their day 2, and this is their day 13. I believe it is the same person, yeah? Yes. So I want to congratulate you on almost finishing your 14-day challenge. Amazing changes between day 2 and day 13. You have a couple of issues, though, for your day 13 that we have to address so that when your day 14 comes along, you're definitely ready to go. So one of them is the fact that the canvas is just too small for the character. Yes, I updated my, what's it called? Shoot, paint bucket. I forgot to add that to my dudes. All right. Merge down. So what I would want you to do is this brush. Start by giving yourself more space on the canvas, because what you're not seeing here is that there's a very defined gradient between the top of the head moving down. Is Discord just for patrons? There is a Discord that's just for patrons, and there's a public Discord that's not so public, because I'm kind of just being very, again, I'm choosing my friends like you choose grapes for a good wine, you know? So I'm being very careful. I don't want it to turn into a, I'm so sorry to say this, weave fest. I also don't want it to turn into a niche or some kind of style-specific community. It's a very intensely focused group of people, though we do mess around a great deal. It's a very fun room. And if you want to be added to the Discord, feel free to send me a message on Facebook, and I may just send you an invite. Be sure to include your gallery, what you're all about, you know, just a little bit of info here and there, some stuff that I may need to gauge whether or not, you know, you'd be a focused member. But again, it's not just about being a focused member or all of that. It's a very fun group of fun people. But Discord, yes, it's only, Apprentice Discord, it's only available for apprentices. I have 2. So what I'm doing here, as you can see, is I'm blocking. And I am trying to discern between certain groups here. Because remember back to that how to do edge work video. The edge work, edges, what are edges video. Remember that video? In that video, I discuss one really, really important rule, which is one value per block. One value. And a block is a plane. So if this entire area here, so essentially what I'm saying is that your work is blotchy. Because this entire area right here of the temple is all one value, but you seem to have it so that it's not under the eyebrow, it seems to be a little bit a different value, so I'm just going to be fixing that. Sorry, I'm not thinking very straight today. Just still getting used to, oh Lord, brush name, brush stroke, brush tip, brush stroke. There we go. Strength low. Okay, so I'm just why are you doing that? Oh God damn it. I'm sorry. I used the wrong one. Okay. So we're just gonna I just updated my Photoshop. I'm sorry. I'm a total like grandma today. Alright, so I'm just smudging away. I don't know why this Photoshop is really weird. Image size. Oh, it's a good size. I did this because the liquify, I also updated my driver because the liquify tool was being very, very, very jittery while I was working. So I'm just going to get soft brush and just use it here to even out some of your values. So again, one value per block. There we go. All right. So instead of having this weird gradient, now her skin looks like it's the same value all around, which is essentially what I was doing. All right, and I shrink my brush to smudge. So why do I shrink my brush to smudge geometric areas like this? Well, I pretty much gave the answer. Can anyone elaborate a little bit? I'm enlarging my brush here around the cheek area. Not too much though. But we're just creating that really nice haze. And I feel the cheekbones are a bit too dark. So again, be careful with what you're messing around with here in your representation of the value changes across the face. She feels like she changes complexion based off the feature. So when it comes to the nose, it's a different person's nose, different person's cheeks. That needs to be corrected. So once you like even all this out, you can go back and give a nice sharp cast shadow for the neckline. That can be dark because it's a cast shadow. A shadow has to be treated as such. But her face is fully exposed to her, no, it's fully exposed to her, it's going to give me the error again, isn't it? It's not an error, stupid. No, okay. It's fully exposed to the light, so that means that we are going to be giving her a lighter representation of her complexion all the way around. Alright, but that's just for the shadow. See how her neck, once we balance the face out, the neck feels like it's a completely different person's neck? So you need to work on that, my friend. Because now what we're doing is giving the neck its value outside of the cast shadow. Okay, you can go back to that and bring in that dark circle color. So one thing that you're actually having trouble with here, and I've talked about this before, is your pupil size. Your pupil size is really big, especially for a 14-day challenge. I'm not sure why you guys do this. I know you think it's pretty and all that, but it's not mature. One thing also is that you have a seam for the nostril. I'm not sure why you guys add a seam. I mean, the nostril doesn't have a seam on the base. The nostril is just the nostril at the top. Everything else just slides back into the nose. The nostril cavity is just the face under the nose. So I don't know why you guys put a little hurdle there. Yeah, sometimes there can be a little bit of a bump or two from the Cupid's bow, but it's not that severe. Okay, so careful with that. And the entire nose shadow itself is just extremely, extremely dark. So I'm just going to lighten it up and then redo the nostrils. And the nostrils, just radial shading. I'm really undoing a lot of what you guys do, and a lot of the mistakes you guys have is just overworking. You guys are overworking an area because you don't know where to stop, because you don't have any fundamental knowledge to tell you when to stop. So that needs to stop. You might want to go into control panel and disable sticky key prompt for pressing shift 5 times. So it will just keep coming up. It's in the accessibility settings. Thank you so much, Jaden. So control panel and accessibility. Is it in this, or is it the disability? Is it ease of access? I'm just going to do it now so that I don't forget. I'm just going to let him answer me. So just stop, yeah. Alright, sometimes there is a tiny little seam just down here under the nostril. Just like that. That's all you need. And there's the shadow of the septum just under there. Okay, so we're going to look at the before and after, and we're going to see how much of an issue you had. But before that, I'm going to go into this hell and just look at that jitter. It's unbelievable. But again, at least it's not a performance jitter like it was before. Just looks like it's jittering, but before it jittered and jittered the stroke of the liquefy, which means that I couldn't use it. But I updated my graphics card, so hopefully I don't have this issue anymore. Just kept jumping around. I couldn't really finish an adjustment. But what I'm doing here is I'm trying to give the head of the female less of that really strong jawline and more of a feminine neckline. That should make her look a little bit more feminine. So the jawline for females, yes, they can be strong like that one actress's, but some of it is because they're very thin and they have like almost no fat in that area, which is not that appealing for characters. You want to use that or save that kind of character design tool for when characters really do need that bony, starving, skeletal thing. Istebrak, under graphics card settings, turn off vertical sync for Photoshop. Control panel, ease of access center.
Always scan this section.
Gosh. Shut up. Make the keyboard easier to use. Make the keyboard easier to use. Make touch and tablets, make the keyboard easier to use. And turn on toggle when holding num key for 5 seconds. Turn on sticky keys. Turn on mouse keys. Everything's unchecked, so I'm not sure why.
Always scan this section.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Scared the living thing out of me. So one thing I'm going to do now is just show you the... I'm so sorry for the distracted class, you guys. This is unusually distracted today.
Start magnifier.
Okay. I'm just going to close this. No, thank you. Stupid jerk looking for a feature in my videos. Who asked ya? He's not just going to keep going, is he? Is he going to keep talking? Bob. I'm just going to call him Bob. So what I'm doing right now is clearing out this area so I can show you the benefit of a non-freaky, bad eye contacts, cheesy cosplay contact pupils, what they're just doing to your painting, and what really, really nice, clean, simple, circular iris and pupil combo can offer your painting. But before all that, I'm just going to put a little bit of sparklies of shine just under here. So yeah, I'm using my new brush. Look at how many versions I had of it before I finally settled for this. It's a really, really pretty brush. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's a little less texture overall, but I may release it, I'm not sure. But it's the start of a new set that I'm working on. And I make sets based off necessity. I don't really make sets just to make them. So they're generated as I work. So if I feel like I need a little adjustment here and there or make a whole new brush, then that's what's going to happen. And I'm just smudging around all these areas of shine, and this adds that dewy touch to the skin. And you can see once we blend it all out, the skin feels really active, really alive, because it's that dewy water that sits on top of the skin. You don't have that. You're already on day 13. So for those who are trying their 14-day challenge and are not looking at old 14-day challenge critiques, you're really doing yourself a disservice. It's not just because you get to see other people's mistakes, But because you are, you know, getting a whole new perspective on the 14-day challenge, not just going to be a tunnel vision of your own experience, and you're limited to your own experience. You're going to experience it through another artist. So I smudged out the inside of the eyebrows here. And now I'm going to add in the pupils. So all I do for the pupils is I just get a basic brush. Lost it. There it is. So it's not the right size right now. Actually, that looks like an okay size. Okay, so it's a completely different character now that we have given her a solid circular shape for her pupils. It's a completely different character that feels a lot more realistic. So the face is a little asymmetrical, so I'm gonna just lift one eye a little bit. Oh, lifted it too much. Okay. Alright, so a lot more beauty, and you can make her eyes as green as you want. Just make sure that you are rendering them according to a reference. You're not using that typical dark pupil and purely outline with really, really dark rim iris. It doesn't make sense to have it like that. The eye is a lot more complicated than that. It's a bowl. It's under a lot of shadow and under a lot of shape, so make sure you're looking for a reference on how the iris and the pupil actually look, that it's not looking like cheap contacts. So cosplay contacts images. Alright, they look really, really cheesy and really lame, and this is just not how you're supposed to be painting eyes, okay? So green eyes. Okay, so you see how much more complicated an eye is. It usually doesn't have a rim. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's got a shadow towards the top. This is light that's facing the camera. Sometimes there's always the shine of the light, and that's the liquid of the eye reflecting light backward. Okay. Levi. So let me see another good reference for eyes that are really, really bright. Right here, you see how the lower rim area, I'm not sure if this is edited or I'm not really sure. This is a great example. See how the rim is very milky. It's not that dark, whereas the inside, the pupil, is extremely dark. All right. So this is really, really like, what's the opposite of dilated? Focused. Eyes. Right, and then you've got the reflection of the outdoor environment on the eyes. Okay, so this is a good size for where they were before, and then we'll look at the before and after now. Okay, before. After. Before, after. So do you see how the skin was very blotchy? It looked like she had a tan, but only around her neck area. So we've cleaned that whole area out. And you still have a lot of space left for your focal point. So your background value can actually be just a little bit more bright. Just a little bit more bright, but you can leave it dark if you feel more comfortable with that. At least for the study. But when we're reflecting stuff on a face, like oils, we actually need to reinforce why that's happening. And so that now the skin tone is as dark as it needs to be. Whereas before you had that splotchy stuff going on. And the pupils are way too large. And when the pupils are large, it's hard to tell where the eyes are looking. If the eyes are looking down, up, they're just filling too much of the space in between the eyelids. Okay? So any questions at all about this? I'll do all this later. Let me just grab the the opposite of dilated is contracted. Thank you. I had a question, probably I remember wrong, but did you say in the past video that the value of the white of the eye should be a bit darker than the mid-tone value of the skin? It depends on the light environment, but yes, I believe I did say that. Where the eyes are right now is really great. I think a bit darker than the highlight is what I said, not the midtone, or the light midtone. Obviously darker than the lightest value on the face. Usually the lightest value is the specular reflection on the eye, but that's pure white, so we're not going to make the whites of the eyes pure white. We're going to make them a gray, because they don't glow in the dark. Another question, how do we obtain that fundamental knowledge of knowing when to stop? Even for this day 13, they still had that hurdle. Is it practice, mileage? Knowing when to stop, you're right, it is a fundamental, it links back to your fundamentals. It's when you feel like you've had and represented enough of the core shadow, that you're completed with one section and going on to the core shadow of the next. That's all it is, you're just finding core shadows. Painting is finding core shadows, write that back to me. So when you're deciding on where the values are going to be for the lip, you're finding a core shadow based off a cylinder. When you're finding the core shadows of the nose, it's a triangular prism. When you're finding the eyes, it's a sphere. So it's all finding one core shadow after another. If you feel like you represented the right amount of edge work per geometry, which is your fundamental, and the right kind of core shadow, then you're done. But a student doesn't think they're done, because look at the nose. The nose isn't geometrically sound. They had value sharing. The eyes were missing a core shadow along the lower eyelid. The eyelid, a waterline, was way too bright. Oh, I didn't darken the other one. Darkened one, I didn't darken the other. Oops, no, soft brush. Okay, so that's when you stop. You stop when you feel like you've represented enough. If you don't know what it is you're representing, you're not going to know when to stop. So it's not magic. It's not something that you just instinctively feel like, okay, it's time to stop. No, it's it looks complete to you because you have actually represented the feature with the right amount of geometry. You've completed it. It looks complete. It looks like a complete form study with the organic factors considered. So they kept going, and I'm undoing what they're doing because they didn't have a familiarity. Let's look at the eyebrow bone. They didn't have a familiarity with what's going on with the eyebrow bone, so they overrepresented it. The eyebrow bone looks more like it juts from the side, then grows more feminine, with a feminine curve in the contour line. So cutting that off and being aware of the cube of the head is one complete core shadow that we finished. Also thinking about the sphere of the head, we made all the shadows gravitate down. So the value of the chin right now, the lightest value of the chin is this dark against the forehead, which is actually pretty accurate. It's not too dark, it's not too light, and the skin tone still looks complete. The cheekbones can still be a bit dark. They look a bit dark, actually. But that's because they're sunken in and we're adding that little extra makeup contouring effect. But now the lower eyelids are actually core shadows instead of accessories where they were before. The core shadow of the lower eyelid traveled all the way down into the cheeks, even though the cheeks were light spots. This is all stuff you become aware of. Yeah. Is there a measure ratio about shadows and lights, different plane shadows, or we copy what we see in our visual library? No. Like I just did, I compared the chin light to the forehead. The chin is darker than the forehead, even though that's a highlight. That's pretty much what the ratios are when you're doing top-down light source for the 14-day challenge. I noticed you didn't flip the canvas even once. Why is that? Because I didn't need to. Another question, how do we obtain that fundamental knowledge? I answered that. What about the cheekbone shadow? Is it too intense? It's not intense. Intense would be like intense. It's just maybe mildly a little bit too dark, like I said earlier, which means you can make it a little bit less strong. Should still have cheekbones. And you can do the inversion of that, which is just build off the highlight. If for some reason you want to, if the face is a little bit more dewy, if the face is a little bit more glowy or soft, if you want to add that softness. But now the face feels like it's a bit too bright in certain areas, which is why I liked where the cheekbones were before. But to see how adding highlight made these look dark anyway. So it's your choice what you would like to do. Are they high, not sunken in, or are they low but sunken in? It's your choice. You're just rearranging the bone structure at this point. They were not intense at all. Any more questions at all for this? Do I lock pixels? If I'm working with a transparent layer, yes. Okay, so let's move on. Congratulations on your 14-day challenge. So before, after, and one thing I'm going to say as nicely and harshly as I can, which is like a mix of the two, grow up with your whole pupil thing. Make the pupils a lot more mature. Look at a reference and draw what actually happens in a pupil and an iris. Don't draw those stupid, stinky anime contacts anymore. They're not good for your art. Amazing improvement. Okay, so for this piece and this piece, they had extremely similar issues, which is the far brow bone is deviated so high in rotation. So you guys are really just feverishly trying to show the far side when rotating. It's just not going to show. Try as you might. When you're rotating, it just won't show. It's not the kind of universe we live in. When things turn, they disappear. Okay, so we have less of that far side visible. Eventually, eventually it'll happen. I mean, you can fight it if you want, but it'll happen. The nose will reach the edge. and you just simply will not see the far side anymore. And that's about it. That's as much as it goes into it. Okay, so before, after. All right, so you guys had some of this problem here. I think this is the same reference that Wang Ji someone. I think you referenced one of his work, one of his pieces. Same thing over here. So I'm not really sure if you worked with a reference. I'm not sure what's happening with the nose, which is extremely big. I'm sure in the reference it wasn't that large. But again, deviated far side. And the nostrils are all pointing up, like you've completely pointed it up. It's not that kind of perspective. We're not looking down at the nose like that. Right. Shifting the face back, aligning it all. So I'm seeing these lines in my head. So for that question about flipping earlier, I'm seeing these lines in my head that I'm adjusting against because of how much I've measured in the past. So you will also develop this awareness if you measure and not skip that stage. Okay, so now I'm just shifting everything back against the symmetry line. And the chin. Zoom out. Really important that we zoom out. And her nose doesn't have to be this small. You can keep it large if your reference had a large nose. I'm just basing it off my template in my mind. Right. As for the hairline, you've drawn every single individual hair, which is a cardinal sin in this community. Do not do that. Blend it, smudge it, represent the texture with an illusion. Do not actually try to draw every single one. Oops, I keep messing up. I keep thinking burn is smudge and smudge is burn. You don't need all that detail because if you were looking at her eyes, you wouldn't be seeing this much detail. So you draw with your periphery vision for and anything outside the focal point. Okay. Before, after. The nose was completely pointing up. As for your background value, which is excruciatingly white, and the shadow on her arm, which is, she's got like this big cast shadow right here on her neck. This is all inaccurate. You really need to go back to your reference and assess where you're going with this illustration, why you've used the tile canvas, which is a canvas with neither long nor wide, where your cast shadows are, what your intentions are with my daughter, what your intentions are with my painting, and sorry, couldn't help. And I have really dumb jokes. They're not really great. Okay, so please decide where you're going so that you can go there. All right, so something like this is a lot more graceful, maybe not that zoomed in, and a little bit more decision making on this area, which really doesn't have a lot of content at all. When we got rid of that shadow and we tried to add anything in here, we said that there was zero information here. Where there is a body of black or white, there's no info. You get info with a variety of midtones. Content is a variety of midtones. Write that back to me, please. I'm excruciatingly white. I can vouch for that. Levi's ass is like this notepad. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that in class. 3/4 view eyes. Yeah, the left eye was really high and very low. The other one was very low. I watch your lessons when I draw sort of like a podcast. I basically can't watch you live because time zones. Wonderful content. Love from Australia. Thank you so much. I don't know how late it is or early it is right now, but thank you for popping in and sending me that message. You're so sweet. Content is a variety of midtones. There you go. So what I would suggest, if this is supposed to be some kind of divine character, is bring in a glow where the glow is just shining in front, where you have that bloom. If it's not a divine character, if it's just a gift for a friend, which I think it is, or maybe it's just a study, get rid of that. Get rid of that background value. It's very, very bad. Okay. Next up is the form studies. So, step 1 of form studies is making sure that your background is a single value. If it's not, Istebrak has to do all this. Okay. So the shapes you chose are a little wonky. And the reason why we do form studies is so that we can have, just like, you know, you have those lines projected in your mind, you can have a rigid language of, a rigid image, a nice, solid, trustable, dependable rigidity to your imagination of a form so that you can use it when you need it. So a solid value in the background is an excellent way to test your light environment and control U. Okay, it's not working. Select university, select. And I don't know why control U is not summoning. Oh, fudger. Mode, RGB, don't flatten. I mean, why even offer me to flatten if you're not going to flatten? I mean, the default, it won't flatten. But the background value needs to be a bit brighter so that the rigidity that you're supposed to be representing in these can be seen, because the edge work is really, really plain here. And they're very floppy, wonky, little weaselly kind of form study. They don't have any solidness to them, and I think it's because you freehanded a lot. Please use the polygonal lasso tool. It's a wonderful tool. It only works in straight lines, and you can build some nice shapes with it. This looks more like a joint or a smudging tool than it does a cone and or cylinder. You're missing a lot. One of the things that you're missing is the gradual buildup of values with radial shading. So where's the light source direction? And that's how we apply our values. So value number 1, value number 2. After a certain point, you see this high point? Imagine a car traveling on top of the balloon, and the car is going to reach a point where it's no longer visible if the camera was over here. That's the point where the core shadow starts. That's technically what it is. The light source is a camera. The light source is a vanishing point. Write that back to me. And then we build the light towards the light source, and then we make sure that after that line, once we find this wonderful core shadow, after that line, that's where we have that distinction between upper and lower neighborhood of values. These values don't mix, all right? Just a little bit of bounce light there, a little bit of shine. Same thing over here. I mean, you do have a better radial shade here. You're kind of sculpting. I can see your grain of your brush is actually wrapping around. That's good. If the light source is from the top left, it will have more shadow on one side than another. Okay, light source is a vanishing point. Good. So when you're doing these form studies, make sure you're having nice, solid shapes. Make sure your background value is as bright as it needs to be. and make sure you're shading radially, okay? Or else your objects will not look realistic because you're not shading with respect to their geometric shape. And if you don't know what geometric shapes to use, look them up, Google it, geometric shapes, do them all. Do them all in rotation. Do 1 page of rotated squares, 1 page of rotated cones, 1 prism, a pyramid, and that's just going to be preparing you for all possible combinations of forms later on in your illustrations, especially with figures. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining. If you guys want to join the community, I'm so sorry for my fatigue today. I'm not really sure what's happening, but go to istebrak.com, click on the Google Plus icon to join. Please read the rules and look out for the resource pack for the upcoming challenge by the end of the week. And by the end of the week, the Patreon Apprentice Challenge homework will be submitted. So if anyone's interested in joining on Patreon and getting in on the homework and the lessons for this month, you may join now. The pay up front feature has been enabled, so there's no need for me to add extra security measures in my channel. So you can join whenever you want. But it's preferable that you join at least, give yourself like 2 weeks to finish the homework. But last month, students took forever to finish their homework because it was a very challenging experience. So this upcoming month is going to be all about rendering and pushing your render on male faces. So the assignment is very, very specific. The assignment has requirements. So it might be best for you guys to, if you are considering, to make the decision to join earlier. Though a lot of people joined towards the end, not a lot of people joined on the homework. And not many people submitted work. So if you do have work you want submitted that you want to be looked at in the private apprentice stream, you may do so as well. Any of your private work. Or if you want to write up in the Discord community, I do write up critiques for those who submit in the homework submission category, the text channel. Thank you everyone for joining. I will see you guys on Thursday. If not, because of the vacation, I'll see you guys on Tuesday. If not, I might see you guys on the 16th. So it might just be 2 days this week where I don't see you guys. That next Thursday and next Tuesday. Depending on what we do, we might go to Canada. We might stay here in the United States. I'm not sure. But I will see you guys on, well, I'll see you when I see you. Bye, guys.